Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again today. My name's Steve Cooper. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. Today we're talking about one of the must-have baits here on the Delta, and that is the chatterbait. The chatterbait wasn't always a killer for me. When I first got it, I fished it and I liked the bait and I caught a few fish on it, but it took me a couple of years to fool around with that bait and start kind of finding the little subtleties of it and working on the technique before it went from a nice little bait out of the box to an absolute killer. I fished a lot of different chatterbaits, and the one that I've settled in on is the evergreen jackhammer. Maybe not a big surprise there. Nobody likes paying $20 for a chatterbait, but I'm telling you guys, it's outfished everything that I've had out here. So I pay it. I grimace a little bit when I'm in the store buying it, but when I'm out here, I've got a smile on my face all the time. And I believe this bait outproduces a lot of the other baits because, number one, it has a tungsten head. It's very compact. And if you've done much background check on evergreen, they have the patent on how this head, the blade is connected to the head. It's connected directly to the head. It gives a little different wobble, and I think it actually helps it track at whatever depth a lot better than some of the other ones. If you drop this down to 8 foot and you pull it in, it stays at 8 foot and tracks at that level. If you drop it in at 2 feet and you pull it in at 2 feet, it tracks right at that 2 foot level. And for me, on the Delta, I'm fishing 99% of my time between 2 and 8 feet deep. So it's a very versatile bait. When it comes to color, this is my go-to color right here. It's either this, which is a sprayed grass, or a green pumpkin. Both of them are killer. If you wanted to get fancy, you can get a white and a black and blue. I like the black and blue at low light and after dark. Half ounce is what I throw all the time. I guess if you were somewhere where you needed to get a little deeper or you fish in real heavy wind, you can go with a heavier head. Okay, let's talk about trailers, and I'm real specific on this trailer. Please don't let me take you away from your favorite trailer if you're catching fish, but my suggestion is to forget about throwing paddle tail type baits and cross style baits that have drag on their tail, because what I don't want is the tail dragging and it's flattening out the action of the chatterbait. So when it's coming through with that tail dragging towards the back, it kind of buzzes like this. I have found by using just a straight tail or a fluke style, something that doesn't have any drag on the tail, I think this is a sluggo, something like that, it allows the chatterbait, instead of going like this, to give it a little wider wobble. It's also a big triggering factor the way that you fish this bait with this guy, and I'm going to talk about it in just a second. This particular bait is the one, or trailer, is the one I highly recommend, and it is called the Man's Reelin' Shad, and it's meant to be a fluke style bait, a twitch bait, and as a fluke style bait it's not worth a darn, but you put it on this jackhammer and I'm telling you, the magic starts. Comes in two sizes. This is a 5 and I use this most of the time. This is a 3. I'll use this, and if the Delta turns out to be really clear, fish are a little finicky for whatever reason, sometimes they prefer a little more compact bait, I'll throw the 3 on. Now the thing about this bait is it's extremely durable, but it's very pliable. I mean, it does whatever the action of the chatterbait tells it to do. It'll move wherever it wants. If you look at this, it's got a split right in the middle. This area of the head, the plastic is a different plastic. It's a very tough plastic. So when you string this on to the chatterbait and the little keeper barbs up here, once it goes on there, it's on. It stays on and it's not going anywhere. There is one drawback on this bait. Every now and then it will turn around and foul on the hook. It'll come back like that. It's a little bit of a drawback, but I'm telling you, don't worry about it. Continue fishing the bait, fish it for a day or two. You're gonna find out what this bait does for you, and fooling around undoing that every now and then is not going to be a problem for you. This is the guy you want right here. I'm telling you, it's been great for me. The other thing that I found is if you buy a black and blue, the blade comes painted blade. If you buy a white or a green pumpkin, the blade's not painted. It comes in a shiny silver. I have found that less flash means more fish to me. So I take a paint pen and I paint the blades. Here's another little secret. See this of where the paint's worn off? Right in here. For some reason, these catch fish. There's a little bit of flash right here down by the head, and I have to believe that's a triggering action. So when I am painting the blades now, I'll only paint them down to about so far, and I leave this silver. And that little bit of flash in there somehow is a trigger. I found that as these blades started to wear out, I'd start catching more and more fish, to just to the point now that that's the way I paint them. They don't have to be pretty, just need that little bit of flash. Now, I was talking about the tail pulling on the end of the bait. What I'm looking for is a little hip shake in this bait. So instead of just chattering through there, I want the bait to wobble slowly and then pop, and then pop. And the way you do this is when you throw it out, you're gonna give it a little pop with a reel handle, just pop, pop, and that'll give it that hip shake. And that's a big triggering factor. And I'm going to talk a lot about retrieves and triggering factors and what to watch for, so that you'll be able to try out some different techniques when you get out on the water. So I'm really jacked up. I want to show you some footage of what we have here on the Delta. We'll show you some catches. We'll talk about some retrieve. So let's take off and start fishing. There it is. Fish here. There we go. All right. That a girl? That's what we're looking for. Here's an example of a slackline bite. We're working the bait through some submerged vegetation. You're going to see it get hung up. As soon as it's popped through, the line's going to go slack. That's the bite. We're starting to hang up. We're hung up. Pops through, the line goes slack. That's the bite. Set the hook. We've got the fish. All right, guys, a couple of suggestions on retrieving a chatterbait, and probably my number one tip would be to simply make a long cast. That's going to give you the opportunity to change cadences and retrieval speeds throughout that one single cast, and that's important with the chatterbait because it's a bait that not only attracts fish visually, but it's also going to have fish tracking it through vibration because of the blade. That fish may intercept that bait halfway back on your retrieve. That doesn't mean that it's going to come and hit it right away. It may track it for a while, and by making that long cast, you have several opportunities to make that fish bite by either stopping, starting, slow rolling, whatever you're doing on that particular day. So that's a good reason to just extend your cast on the chatterbait. The other thing is, when you make that cast, don't be afraid to let it drop down in the weeds or in the vegetation. And you'll know that by the line just going slack or maybe giving a little jump. Then you can start moving it back to the boat. Now, you want to resist the temptation to every time you feel a weed to give it that jerk. Sometimes that's going to be necessary to get it off of the out of the hydrilla or whatever you're fishing. But what you really want to do is just kind of point the rod tip towards the bait and just reel slowly. And most times you're able to just reel that bait through the vegetation. I'm going to throw out and see if I can get this stuck down there. Again, once it hits the bottom, don't be afraid to leave it there for a second. Okay, it's on the bottom in hydrilla. I'm just going to start reeling, pointing the rod tip at the bait and start reeling. Now I feel that the bait's not chattering, so I'll give it a little pop. Okay, now I feel that bait chattering, and I can pull it right down along through the weeds. Oh, there's a fish! Ha ha! Okay, let's get rid of that guy. So, what was happening there is you saw that I threw the bait out, I let it all the way on the bottom, and it just sat there for a minute or two. And then I was just slowly working that bait through the vegetation. And every now and then it'll get hung up. If you're not pulling weeds off of this bait from time to time, you're not fishing it aggressively enough. But again, extend your cast, let it get to the bottom, point your rod tip at the bait, and just slowly reel it in. A hip shake is what I call doing this, and that makes that bait do this. Shake at the hip. That's a trigger factor for me. And the other thing that you might want to do is remember, as that bait gets stuck in the hydrilla or whatever, and you're pulling it through, as that bait pops out, that second that it, there it is again. See, that one came right out of the weeds, and oh, uh-oh, this could be trouble. Oh boy. But anyhow, as I was saying, as it pops through the weeds, that's when they'll take it. What do we got here? Oh, striper. We might need a net on this one. With these chatterbaits, stripers do like them. Okay, there we go. All right, well, chunky little striper, and it's probably a good way to end the video. Hey, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. Man, look at that thing. It chowed down on it. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching. Hey, and I hope you guys figure out a few things and start using some chatterbaits. And even if they're not all black bass, these are a lot of fun too. Thanks for watching, guys.